from Germany. At the end of the Second World War was Joe Jordan. I was an insurance agent working on the streets, and I walked there at those office buildings right behind and beside Booker T. Washington High School, and I was going to knock on the door. And a very nice gentleman came down the walkway from a little law firm. And he looked at me and I smiled and said, "Hi, how are you today?" And he said, "Young man, I'm fine, but I've got somebody I want to introduce you to. Could you stop here when you finish your business call?" And I said, "Certainly, I'd be happy to." I was perfectly comfortable, even in those days when we were totally segregated still. I was perfectly comfortable working in anybody's neighborhood. What did I know? I was 23 years old. And I didn't believe in, oh, you know, that's a bad section of the city over there, and that's a problem area over there, and so on. Everybody's neighborhood was in my city. And the privilege that I had was simply this. When I came out of that client's home and walked back towards the building, here came the same nice gentleman. I learned later that it was Joseph Jordan's father. He took me inside and introduced me to this fine young man in a wheelchair. That fine young man, our man Joe Jordan, had fought for the United States of America in France and stepped on a landmine and was a paraplegic. But don't you ever tell him that. I rode with him, drove with him, was privileged to work with him, and he's the one who introduced me to Mrs. Butts. And everywhere we went, there was Joe. He'd pull up, stop the car, reach over the back, slide that wheelchair out, and haul himself out of that car. Now, that seems like a simple thing to those of us who are blessed with full health and no abilities and disabilities. But believe me, it was impressive. The great joy that I had was I had found a friend. And my family and I were blessed to maintain that friendship through the years. And there were very important events, just like this event, along the way. The Jordans, who could not have children, sort of adopted two little blonde-headed, blue-eyed youngsters, my daughter Karen and my son Mark. And we were blessed to be invited every year on New Year's Eve. We would be invited up to the home on the river, Ware Neck, for black-eyed peas and ham hocks, for good luck for the coming year, right? I see some people smiling and nodding their heads. That friendship lasted. Dr. Jordan, Joe Jordan's wife, was a wonderful person and a magnificent hostess. But it was always a marvel to my family to see how taken the children were with Joe Jordan. if you went to political rallies or church rallies, you always found the children right there at the arm of Joe Jordan. He was that much of an inspiration, and several people asked me, they said, Ellis, why do all the kids crowd around Joe Jordan? And I said, it's simple. The young people, just like the young people in these pews, were right at eye level with Joe Jordan, who was in a wheelchair. He made the connection, and that's the kind of connection that the rest of us need to make. I've had the pleasure this afternoon of seeing old friends who are young friends and have gotten a little bit older, but I've seen faces and families and parts of families that I haven't seen for a long, long time, even though I'm still walking the streets and working on the issues. Now, why are we here today? Mrs. Butts' case was one of the most important, significant cases in the history of this country. I think the young people especially will understand this. I tell the people when I go knock on doors these days, no vote, no voice.
Amen.
It is happening again, and I don't mean to be scary about it, but it is happening again. Right next door in North Carolina, we have the same kind of craziness when it comes to the question of voter suppression. And for you young folks, suppression means just that, suppression. Preventing our people who are qualified and age qualified from being able to vote. And it's a deliberate attempt to cut us back, to defeat the movement of the people. And there's only one group of people who can help us. That's Mike, that's you, that's Rodney Jordan, that's all of you in the pews. We will not go back.
Amen.
Evelyn Butts and Marie Young and Mrs. Alveda Green, who is in this auditorium, in the sanctuary, many others. Those people sacrificed too much for us to allow that kind of craziness and nonsense to try to push our folks back into a second-class status. You hold the key. If you truly want to honor Mrs. Butts, which I believe you do, and Joe Jordan and Marie Young and and Walter Green and all of the other folks who contributed so much, you need to stand up, speak out, contact your friends, your relatives, and urge them to vote, because that is the key to defeating the pointy heads who are still with us.
Amen.
There is no time, in my opinion. What do I know? I'm just a young puppy. There's no time for us to waste in saying, well, this is probably just a phase or it will go away. No, ma'am. No, sir. It will not go away. It is something that we must pay close attention to, and instructing and informing our young people is also part of that key. Our young people need to know how to stand up for themselves, and they need to know what the significance of no vote, no voice really means. Rodney, I appreciate you inviting me today. Thank you all for coming with all the sunshine. And for the young people, you all did a super job. And I know that song well. My children used to sing that song through the house all the time. Thank you very much.